Today, we're diving into the provocative and, frankly, mind-bending arguments from Yuval Noah Harari's book, Homo Deus. It asks a really fundamental question. For thousands of years, we've been fighting just to survive. So what happens now that we're actually starting to win?
For as long as we've existed, our story has been defined by three huge adversaries: famine, plague, and war. Harari points out that we always saw these as, well, just part of the deal, uncontrollable forces of nature that we could only pray our way through. But something fundamental has shifted, and that leads us right to the core question of our era. What actually happens when these ancient monsters go from being cosmic forces to just manageable problems? What does humanity even do when it finally starts winning that old war against suffering? Well, this is our new reality. Think about this for a second. For the first time in all of human history, more people die from eating too much than from starvation. Now, we haven't totally gotten rid of famine, plague, and war, but we've completely changed how we think about them. When a famine hits today, we don't chalk it up to God's will. No, we see it as a failure of policy, and we demand to know who messed up. You know how it is. Success just makes you want more. Humans are almost never satisfied. So, with our old enemies mostly in the rearview mirror, we're not just sitting back content. Nope. We're already looking for the next, even bigger mountain to climb. And this sets the stage for a totally new human agenda. First on the list, immortality. We're starting to aim for a world where we can overcome old age, and maybe even death itself. We're beginning to talk about death not as some great metaphysical mystery, but as a technical problem. A heart stops beating? That's a pump problem. Cancer? That's a genetic glitch. And we believe every single technical problem has a technical solution.
Second, after we've pulled people out of total misery, the next big goal is to engineer happiness itself. We're not just happy to avoid pain anymore. We want to biochemically design pure bliss. I mean, why leave feeling good up to chance when we can start tinkering with the very chemicals in our brain that create it?
And this leads to the third, and by far the most audacious project on the table for the 21st century. We're going to aim to upgrade ourselves, Homo sapiens, into Homo Deus. We will literally try to get the divine powers of creation and destruction for ourselves.
So how on earth are we going to pull that off? This quest for godhood, it's not going to be some big, dramatic Hollywood moment. It's going to be a slow, gradual process, and it's going to be fueled by three super powerful technologies that, well, we're already working on right now. Harari points to three major pathways that are all starting to converge. First, you've got bioengineering. Not just fixing genetic diseases, but actively rewriting our own DNA to make us better. Then there's cyborg engineering. Merging our squishy organic bodies with powerful machines. And finally, the big one, creating brand new, non-organic life with artificial intelligence. But here's the massive paradox at the heart of it all. The very tools we're creating to achieve these amazing, godlike dreams, they're also taking a sledgehammer to our most fundamental belief, the idea that there's a single individual you in charge. Okay, this experiment perfectly shows the problem. With split-brain patients, you can basically talk to each half of the brain separately. So in this case, the left brain, the one that can talk, sees a chicken claw. The silent right brain sees a snowy scene. The patient's right hand points to a chicken, and the left hand points to a shovel. But here's the wild part. When you ask the patient, why did you do that? The speaking left brain doesn't say, I have no idea. It just confidently makes up a story to connect the dots. Oh, well, you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed. It proves we have this storyteller in our head that's constantly creating narratives, whether they're true or not. Harari calls these two things the experiencing self and the narrating self. The experiencing self is just your consciousness in this exact moment. The narrating self is that voice in your head that looks back, tries to make sense of it all, and makes plans. So here's the billion-dollar question. Which one is the real you? For centuries, we've bet everything on that narrating self being our one true, authentic identity.
But modern science is kind of suggesting this whole idea of a single, unified self is, well, a useful fiction.
The theory of evolution, for example, shows us a constant stream of change with no space for some timeless, unchanging soul. And that is a terrifying thought, because our entire legal and moral system is built on the idea that this self is real. So if the idea of an authentic self is kind of a myth, what happens when something else, something non-human, can understand the biochemical soup we call feelings even better than we can? Harari's big argument is that as raw intelligence gets separated from consciousness, authority is just naturally going to shift away from us, and over to algorithms.
So let's just ask the question straight up. In the pretty near future, who is going to know you better? You or an algorithm?
Let's just look at the comparison. Your own knowledge of yourself is based on, well, vague feelings, memories that your narrating self has probably edited a bunch, and a ton of social pressure. An algorithm, on the other hand, can have your complete biometric data, your genetic code, your entire browser history, everything. It can make decisions for you based on what worked for millions of other people just like you. And as it keeps making better choices for us, we're just going to start trusting it more.
And what about free will? This experiment with what they call a rat bot is pretty chilling. Scientists can implant an electrode in a rat's brain and literally make it want to turn left or want to climb a ladder just with the push of a button. But here's the really important part. The rat doesn't feel like a puppet. It feels like it wants to turn left. To the rat, it's still free will. So what happens when our desires can be engineered just as easily?
So, where does this all lead? Harari argues that this combination of biotech and AI isn't going to bring us all together. Instead, it threatens to create the single greatest inequality in all of human history. He predicts a future that's split into two main groups. On one side, you have a small, upgraded elite of superhumans, boosted by all the latest tech. And on the other side, you have a massive new class of people who have become economically useless because non-conscious algorithms can do whatever they can do, but better and cheaper. This would completely shatter our belief in the equal value of all humans.
And Harari does not mince words about how high the stakes are. He warns that this is probably the last train leaving the station called Homo sapiens. If you miss it, you're not getting a second chance. The gap won't just be about money, it will be biological.
And that's what Homo Deus leaves us with. The book doesn't give us any easy answers. It just holds up a mirror and shows us the path we are already on. As we gain the power of gods, the only real question left is, what kind of gods are we going to choose to become?